Welcome into Off the Hook Sports. Happy Monday, everybody. I am your host, Caleb Calhoun. We've got a lot to get to today as Tennessee football held its second scrimmage over the weekend. We'll discuss the most pertinent takeaway from that scrimmage, but we're also going to discuss some things we learned on the injury front from those scrimmage. That'll be two separate topics because we have an idea now of who might step in for certain players who are hurt, and also more news on another player who is hurt that will be added to that list. On top of that, Tennessee has officially named its starting quarterback. Maybe not, wasn't by design by Josh Heupel, but that's how it is. Tennessee officially has its starting quarterback. We're going to discuss who it is. It's probably not a shock to anybody. We also have a conversation about the ESPN FPI. Last week we discussed the Football Power Index. We discussed the ESPN Football Power Index. Last week we discussed the ESPN SP Plus rankings. We're going to break that down again. And then we are going to get to the ESPN Football Power Index, which has Tennessee much, much higher than the AP and coaches polls. We're going to get to that. And finally, we close with the Big Ten's absolutely insane college football playoff proposal. I want you guys to take a look at that. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to break that all down for you. So hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn on your notifications, tell a friend. We're building something great here at Off the Hook Sports, and we want you to be a part of it. Also, I am back live for my personal YouTube channel for pro sports coverage with Sports Nightcap. I do that every Sunday, Monday, and Thursday. I wanted to do it as football season kicked off. So returned to that last night to talk about NFL rookie quarterbacks. I'll be back on tonight. The link is in the description down below. Please go over and subscribe to that. We got a lot of fun going on there, and I'm going to send you the link, put it in the chat right here. Hit like and subscribe to that so we can talk some pro sports. We're going to get to that as well. So again, hit the like and subscribe button. The show is represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. New and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Let's get rolling with today's tough question, and it involves the news that broke Sunday night. Tennessee has officially named Joey Aguilar its starting quarterback ahead of the 2025 season. This is based on a report from Brent Hubbs at VolQuest, who revealed the news on Sunday after the Vols had their second scrimmage on Saturday. Joey Aguilar obviously transferred to Tennessee from UCLA after Nico Iamaleava had transferred from Tennessee to UCLA. It was basically a swap. Aguilar was a transfer at UCLA who had played last year for Appalachian State for 2 years, and before that, he was in junior college. Tennessee landed him because they lost Iamaleava, and he arrived to compete in George McIntyre. Merklinger was on the team last year and was the third quarterback on the roster as a four-star freshman. George McIntyre is a four-star fringe, five-star true freshman on this year's team. Those were the three guys in the competition. We had always felt that Joey Aguilar was going to win the job. And the reason we felt that was because I had talked about this for a while. Josh Heupel didn't want to have to name Merklinger or McIntyre the starting quarterback and have them return next year when Faison Brandon is arriving on campus, and he wouldn't be able to have a wide open battle, particularly when he thinks McIntyre and Faison Brandon would be better than Merklinger long-term, but Merklinger would win the job over McIntyre this year. That would have created too many problems. So I firmly believed he wanted Joey Aguilar to win the starting job and gave him every opportunity to do so. However, there's also reports that Aguilar was much better, has gotten much better in practice as time has gone on, which would make sense. And it does appear that he has, according to reports on the practice field, pulled ahead of McIntyre, who had the most raw talent, and Merklinger, who was the most ready in this offensive system. So with that discussion, let's ask this question right now, and it's today's tough question, which is this. Is Joey Aguilar truly the best option on the Vols roster in 2025 at quarterback? That is today's tough question. It's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. I got to be honest with you guys. It's tough for me to say Aguilar is their best option in terms of a talent perspective. However, based on the reporting that has happened, I'm going to say yes. I believe he's their best option. One, the politicking I talked about, that is relevant, particularly if this is a throwaway year and a mulligan year for you. You want an open competition next year, and you don't want anybody to have the leg up. And if Merklinger or McIntyre starts, they have the leg up. But more importantly than that, Aguilar, it sounded like when he arrived on campus and started fall camp, was behind Merklinger and McIntyre. But that makes sense. And let me break down why. Merklinger had already been experienced in this system. He played in it last year. He should have been ahead of Aguilar. Aguilar and McIntyre were as unfamiliar with the system as each other. And McIntyre does have more raw talent than Aguilar. Hence the reason in the first scrimmage, McIntyre, according to all reports, outperformed Aguilar. However, part of being an experienced quarterback, which Aguilar obviously is, a fifth-year senior who's in his final year of eligibility, who will be able to come back next year, is being able to quickly pick up an offense. Being able to learn it more quickly than a true freshman who's also learning things about the college game in general. We see this at other positions, particularly receiver, which is a much more complicated position to learn in Josh Heupel's offense than quarterback. You never see true freshmen really break out in Josh Heupel's system. You can see first-year players break out in Josh Heupel's system at receiver. Brew McCoy did it in 2022. Chris Brazzell actually saw a pretty good bit of action last year, and then all the receivers in 2021. However, what's key to that is that all of those receivers were upperclassmen, so they were familiar with the college game. It's a little more difficult. Actually, it's a lot more difficult as a receiver to pick up Heupel's system as a true freshman while also trying to learn the college game. Aguilar, meanwhile, this system's not that hard for quarterbacks to figure out. It takes about 2 weeks. The first scrimmage was barely 2 weeks into fall camp. Aguilar and McIntyre were kind of on a similar level. Aguilar started to separate himself after that because McIntyre is not just learning the Heupel system. He's learning the college game. And that's why Aguilar is going to have an easier time picking up the system. So with that in mind, I actually do think Tennessee went with their best option in Joey Aguilar. I know I have been critical in the past of Josh Heupel politicking for quarterbacks. I think he picked Joe Milton as his starter in 2021 and ran off Kaidon Salter for weed charges, used that as a pretext. Also ran off Ryan Maurer, eventually ran off Harrison Bailey, and named Joe Milton his starter over Hendon Hooker because Joe Milton was the one guy he signed, and he had a level of arrogance to him. I think Hendon Hooker was truly the better quarterback in practice during that time. But nonetheless, I think the politicking this time is smart because I actually think Joey Aguilar would turn into the better quarterback, at least in McIntyre, and could be comparable to Merklinger. And again, Merklinger is going to be the worst of the three between Merklinger, McIntyre, and Faison Brandon next year. You don't want to name him the starter when he's 1 year ahead of McIntyre and have that type of advantage. Timothy McGee with a super chat says, if I was a quarterback, I wouldn't accept Tennessee offer. I would go JUCO first. This staff has proven that they can't develop freshman quarterbacks and won't let them get game experience. Well, Timothy, to be fair, there's only really been one freshman that they had that they were trying to develop from the start, and that was Nico Iamaleava. And there were a lot of other situations last year that were going on with Tennessee beyond Nico. By the way, we're talking about issues. They made the college football playoff, and Dylan Sampson set the all-time rushing record at Tennessee. Teams were committed to stopping the pass. Nico Iamaleava didn't have the right receiving core because none of them were 100%. And Nico himself was in his first year starting and was slow to process. All of those things are things you couldn't. I don't put all that on development of Josh Heupel and Joey Halzle to this point. So this year, we're still not going to see that with Aguilar, but we will see it in the near future with Merklinger, McIntyre, and Faison Brandon. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
Welcome back to the program. Sorry, I think we had a little bit of technical difficulties there, a bit of a glitch. However, we are back and wanted to break down a little bit more of this starting quarterback situation. Joey Aguilar winning the job, I think one thing that helps him with, and we talked about him as a fit for the system, and I always believe the best fit for Josh Heupel's system was more a quarterback that's got the beautiful deep ball down the sideline because they're going to scheme receivers bare. But even with with more athletic receivers this year, I think that may not be fully the case anymore. And the reason that may not be fully the case is because of that 3-3-5 shell, meaning you're going to have to be able to be willing to throw more balls up for grabs, 50-50 balls, which Nico wasn't willing to do. You're going to have to make quicker decisions, even quicker than Josh Heupel already expects you to make, and you'll have to throw more passes over the middle. Joey Aguilar, for all of his faults, does throw more passes over the middle. He's got a dart for an arm. Last year, he did only complete 55.9% of his passes, but threw for over 3,000 yards and had 23 touchdowns despite the 14 interceptions. The year before, completed 63.7% of his passes, 33 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I think his gunslinger mentality will help Tennessee, particularly with Josh Heupel's offense being an offense that doesn't really give you a lot of opportunities to throw interceptions. Now, there might be more this year because of how they have to adjust to that 3-3-5 shell, which is dangerous for a gunslinger like Joey Aguilar, but not enough for him to throw 14 interceptions. I don't think that's going to happen. So the poll question up, is Joey Aguilar truly the best option on the Vols roster in 2025? 83% of you say yes. 17% of you say no. And I got to say, for the first time, as critical as I've been of how Josh Heupel handles the quarterback race, and I think there's a lot to criticize there, I am with the 83%. I say yes. Joey Aguilar truly is the best option to start for Tennessee in 2025, and I don't really think there's much of a debate there. Aguilar averaged 273 yards a game last year, 268.4 yards a game in 2023. And look, he's got enough mobility, and I think he's going to be more mobile and more fluid of a runner than Nico Iamaleava. He did have 207 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns last year, 245 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns the year before. So it's not like he's afraid to run, too, which could help a lot. So taking all that into account, yes, I think Joey Aguilar is the best choice for Tennessee to start at quarterback. I think the official news that he is starting at quarterback is good news for the Vols this year. And who knows, maybe they'll surprise some people and be a lot better than we lost without than we thought without Iamaleava. And David Speaks brings up a great point. Joey is the active total offense leader in college football the past 2 years, and he had subpar talent at Appalachian State compared to some recent App State teams. Very true. Very good point. Portions of the program are brought to you by Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations, your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chat with 2tsmortgage.com. Chat with 2tsmortgage.com. It is time for Bank on It, and it involves Tennessee's Scrimmage, which leads to some of the talk with Joey Aguilar. Tennessee held its second scrimmage over the weekend on Saturday. That scrimmage is one of the big reasons I believe Joey Aguilar was named the starting quarterback to begin with on Sunday, although, again, not technically named by Heupel, but Brent Hubbs reported it. Here's why that second scrimmage, I think, led to Joey Aguilar being the starter. The reports around Tennessee's locker room from that scrimmage, and the big takeaway is the offense was dramatically better. The defense was significantly ahead of the offense the first scrimmage. The offense was dramatically better in the second scrimmage. What does that tell me? It tells me that Joey Aguilar is much more comfortable in the system. His decision-making is starting to separate himself from the likes of George McIntyre, who has the raw talent, and it's getting on par with Jake Merklinger. When you add in the politicking, like I said, that's why Joey Aguilar is named the starting quarterback. Now, there are a lot of issues for the offense to still work out. Most notably, they got some kinks to work out at receiver due to injury, and there are still questions on the interior of the offensive line because they lost 3 guys from last year: Cooper Mays, Javonte Spraggins, and Andre Carrick. And it sounds like William Satterwhite, Jesse Perry, Wendell Moe Jr., and Sam Pendleton are all in competition for the 3 interior offensive line starting spots. When you take that into account, it's not like it's a finished product, but the offense is improving significantly. Also, you want Tennessee's defense to be better than the offense. As a matter of fact, it would have been shameful had the defense not started the year and started fall camp better than the offense and light years ahead of the offense. So I'm going to say bank on it. And it's brought to you by Commercial Bank member FDIC, Life Made Better. Tennessee's offense being significantly behind the defense in the first scrimmage and then starting to catch up in the second scrimmage is exactly where the Vols expected this program to be going into fall camp this year. That is Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank member FDIC, Life Made Better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right, the poll question. Tennessee's offense having to play catch up to the defense in fall camp. You guys vote on that. It's to be expected or it's a big concern. You guys give me your thought. To Timothy's super chat says, I think instead of getting high school quarterbacks, go get JUCO because this staff can't develop freshman QBs like Cutcliffe did with the Mannings. But again, Timothy, this staff, their job isn't really to develop quarterbacks at the same time. Their job is to use your skill set to help you put video game numbers wherever you are. Now, maybe you're right. That is why you should go get JUCO QBs. I just think you get the QBs with the best talent in general that are the best fit for your system. Now, as far as Tennessee being ahead, being where it needs to be and why this situation is to be expected with the defense playing catch up, the offense playing catch up to the defense in fall camp. First of all, for any of you who have covered practice in college football for a significant period of time, generally speaking, early on in the year, you always expect the defense to be ahead of the offense. Traditionally, historically, when spring ball was out, it was always a red flag for the season if the offense was significantly ahead of the defense. There's just a lot more learning that comes in play with the offense and systems, whereas the defense is usually coached, even though there are installments with the defense, they're usually coached to play fast and pick up the system later. It's just a more simplified game playing on defense. It's just more about your talent. Whereas the offense, you're trying to figure out exactly the playbook and what to do. So historically, defenses are supposed to be ahead of the offenses early. That includes all of spring practice and early on in fall camp. Now, maybe the gap is not what you would expect it to be when Tennessee started fall camp this year. George McIntyre was ahead of the other quarterbacks. Jake Merklinger had returned from last year, and Joey Aguilar was supposed to be the experienced guy. But a lot of that has to do with Tennessee's injuries, and we're forgetting this. There's further reason for Tennessee to be significantly behind the defense as fall camp kicked off this year, which is the amount of returning talent. Tennessee replaces 9 of 11 starters on offense this year. 9 of 11. 4 offensive linemen, including all 3 interior offensive linemen. Their starting running back from last year, their starting quarterback from last year, and all of their receivers. Even if there's better talent, there's a huge learning curve. And by the way, the quarterback that they're looking to start wasn't even there in the spring or the summer. Oh, he was in the summer, but wasn't even there in the spring to really learn the system and the playbook as it was installed. Of course, the offense should be significantly behind the defense. That's to be expected. So I think the scrimmage with the offense starting to catch up is going exactly the way anybody would want it to go to this point, given the state of the program. Now, I think a bigger concern for Tennessee, beyond the injuries, is what they're going to do on the interior of the line, like I just mentioned. How quickly, because picking up the offense, that's as big for the interior of the line as it is for the receivers and the quarterback. And the interior offensive line has a lot to learn. Josh Heupel, for the first time in his career, is going to have to start, for the first time in his career at Tennessee, is going to have to start an offensive lineman he signed out of high school. And it's likely he's going to have to start 2 of them. Okay. David Sanders at right tackle, probably, and William Satterwhite somewhere on the interior. This is where his and Glenn Ellerby's development and Joey Halsey's development will be severely tested. Heupel hasn't had to do that yet, which is insane going into year 5 at Tennessee. So this is the time his recruiting gets tested. There are learning curves. We don't know what the curves are going to be. We heard about the quarterbacks getting more comfortable. Aguilar looked a lot more comfortable reportedly in the scrimmage on Saturday than he looked during the first scrimmage. That's a good sign. That means he's progressing exactly the way you want him to. But what about the interior of the offensive line? We didn't hear much about that. Now, as far as the poll question goes, Tennessee's offense having to play catch-up to the defense in fall camp is to be expected. A big concern. 95% say to be expected. 5% say a big concern. So Timothy with another super chat says that's why most quarterbacks won't come here specifically. Your pro-style quarterbacks won't come here because they want to be developed to learn defensive coverages and have a pro-style type offensive scheme. Timothy, again, though, historically, I would agree with you. And that's why you saw why the Mannings, Arch Manning, who is a dual threat still, but trying to learn to be a pro-style for the NFL, committed to Texas. He wanted to develop under Steve Sarkisian. Peyton wanted to develop under David Cutcliffe. But at the same time, I think the NFL's evolved enough now where they have learned to tailor their games to quarterback strengths and develop them in the process to be pro-style quarterbacks once they get to the pros. Look at what the Ravens have done with Lamar Jackson. Look at Patrick Mahomes came from an air raid. That's not a pro-style. He's the best quarterback in the NFL right now. Josh Allen did not prove himself much in college. The only true pro-style, and now he's an elite quarterback, just won MVP. The only true pro-style quarterback on the upper echelon of at the college level in the NFL right now, of the 4 elite quarterbacks, the Mount Rushmore, which is Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow. There's nobody else. Joe Burrow is the only one that was a true drop-back passer playing in a drop-back passer system in college. I think today's game is more about just putting up the numbers to turn you into a draft pick. And we see this everywhere. A lot of talk is out there that Steve Spurrier didn't develop quarterbacks when he coached at Florida in the 90s. I think we've learned now that's not necessarily true. Those quarterbacks that he coached just weren't that good. They weren't good enough for the NFL. He was just smart enough to make them good for him in college. The best quarterback of that crew was Rex Grossman. Okay, so I don't think it was about Steve Spurrier's development. And I think development of quarterbacks that think about that are actually being a little bit short-sighted with what they're doing. The video game numbers will help you generate a lot of NIL revenue. And on top of that, if you're good, you'll make it in the NFL still. So I don't really think that the development of quarterbacks is a big deal. And Joey Aguilar, again, there is some development in the offense. That's why the offense starting to catch up in the scrimmage. In the second scrimmage is a big deal. Joey Aguilar is picking up the offense quickly now. Things are going well. And I do think Tennessee, the offense playing catch up to the defense, is exactly what they expected this time of year. So they're right on schedule right now. How good that means they'll be, we still don't know, but we'll find out. Portions of the program are brought to you by Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. When we come back, we're going to discuss injury news that came out of the scrimmage, and guys are coming out over to replace. There are now options to replace some of the guys that are limited or hurt in practice. Stick with us. We'll break them down 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Hello, ma'am. I'm here to look at that plumbing problem.
Oh boy. Yep. You're gonna need a whole new sink.
If this toilet is no good, you're gonna need a new one ASAP. You are not gonna believe this. You're all out of milk. Have you heard about our service plan?
I need to call Scott's.
Scott's Plumbing, your trusted neighborhood plumber since 1977.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn on your notifications. Again, we are brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. New and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Also, don't forget to check out my channel that I have started back on after a break in the summer, Sports Nightcap, that I do every Sunday night, Monday night, and Thursday night, where there's no set time. It's just after the biggest event of that day, I go live to talk about pro sports news. It's a pro sports focused channel. You guys go ahead and check that out. Again, link is in the description down below and is also in the chat right now. So again, hit the like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn on your notifications. We love everything about you guys and everything that goes on with this podcast. So again, hope to see you guys in the other channel. And guys, it's week 0. That's right. It is week 0. Can you believe it? That means that college football's back this week. How excited are you about week 0? I'm going to make that the poll question now because it seems like everybody agrees that Tennessee's offense having to play catch up is to be expected. So how excited are you about week 0 in college football? Extremely don't care. I'm excited because there's actually a top 25 game this week. I think that's the most underrated part about this is there's a top 25 game this week. So I think it's pretty awesome actually that week 0 is here. I think that we should be talking about it more honestly, because week 0 is it is a great teaser for college football. Let's just be honest. It is a great teaser for college football week 0, the way things work. And so, yes, no, I am actually wildly excited about week 0. It is time for this day in Tennessee football history. And we talk about week 0 because of the hype that comes for the opener of college football. The SEC, and on this day, 89 years ago, the SEC marked September the 26th as its tentative opening, as its official opening for the season. That's when things used to start, was at the end of September. This was a unique period, though, because Tennessee was set to return to the football field and do so with General Robert Neyland as their head coach. Why is that relevant? Because Tennessee, during this time, had Robert Neyland from 1926 to 1934. And then when they were in the Southern Conference and then won multiple Southern Conference titles and then joined the SEC in 33. They were there in 33, 34. Robert Neyland had left in 35 because he was called to active duty service in the Panama Canal, I believe, or in Panama. Was out for a year. W.H. Britton led them to a losing record. and Tennessee returned the next year, and Neyland returned the next year. On this day, the Knoxville Journal and reporter Doug Bean got involved and was creating a buzz in his reporting for the start of the season and Neyland returning. And he had some of the greatest writing ever when he said the Southern Gridiron Titans came to grips early along the Dixie football front and referred to Tennessee as the ambitious 11 who would face worrisome foes and dizzying schedules. It was a big deal for Tennessee to have Neyland back. Doug Bean on this day hyped this season and got everybody excited for it with how he wrote about it. Tennessee went 6-2-2 that year and set the stage for winning a national title 2 years later. That is this day in Tennessee sports history. All right, time for a little 4 downs. As Tennessee's injury report is starting to become more clear. When I say more clear, that does not mean people are getting healthy. That means we're getting a good idea of players and where they're going to land going forward based on suspensions, injuries, whatever, you name it. So, who is hurt and who is going to replace them? That's the real news, and it's 4 downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. We play 4 downs to discuss injuries and players who are going to replace them because it was revealed in the scrimmage on Saturday, and at this point, I don't think much is changing because we are 2 weeks away, less than 2 weeks away from the start of the season. So, doing my Cooper Mays impression, and for those who don't know, I'm going to stick to doing this until Dave gets back. Shout out to Dave. He is still dealing with a deeply personal health matter that he's trying to resolve, and we hope to have him back soon. He has the soundboard. I don't. In his soundboard, Cooper Mays gives off the 4 downs. Because I don't have the soundboard, I'm going to imitate Dave, and I'm going to start with Cooper Mays here. He'll like and subscribe. All right. Well, let's all listen to Cooper, or my interpretation, my imitation of Cooper. Now, players who were hurt, what's their status, or that have been held out of practice? What's their status? Players still being held out is what I really want to say. Players still being held out of practice. What's their status? Who's going to replace them? So, Cooper, first down. The big news of the weekend was David Hobbs being hurt. Defensive lineman David Hobbs is officially injured, and he's going to miss multiple weeks. Brent Hubbs actually reported this too. He has a foot injury, and he's going to miss, again, all we heard was multiple weeks from reports. Hobbs was once a 5-star. He had 20 tackles last year, including a sack. He was part of the rotation. Now, what does this mean for Tennessee? Part of Tennessee's defensive line being so elite last year was them being able to go 6 deep, specifically at the 2 defensive tackle spots. They went 6 deep with Amari Thomas, Elijah Simmons, Bryson Eason, David Hobbs, Jackson Moy, and Omar Norman Lott. Norman Lott, Thomas, and Simmons were the primary ones. They're all gone. Hobbs, Moy, and Eason are set to step in for them. Hobbs was banged up last year, but him being banged up this year is a bigger deal since he's more of a primary defensive tackle. The other 3 that we figured would be in the rotation for them to be able to go 6 deep, and which is what Ronnie Garner likes, were Josh Shell, because he was a transfer that they added from Grand Valley State, specifically for that reason, and 2 rising returning players, Nathan Robinson and Jamal Wallace. Well, Shell, Robinson, and Wallace are still all there. Moy and Eason are clearly now going to be the starters. Who's going to be the 6th guy? It's going to have to be a freshman. It will either be Charles House III, Ethan Utley, or Isaiah Campbell. Which one of them is going to replace David Hobbs at Tennessee, given his injury? I think that's going to be the question, but it does look like Charles House III is going to be the odd man out. Charles House III is not fully ready to go. Isaiah Campbell and Ethan Utley were both 4 stars across the board on the recruiting trail. One of them will probably be the 6th guy on there. I don't know who, but it'll be down to Utley or Campbell. And it depends on what they do the next 2 weeks in practice. Cooper Mays here. 2nd down. Thank you, Cooper. All right. 2nd down. Cooper Mays. Chris Brazel II was once again held out. Looks like Braylon Staley's back. Mike Matthews is back. Mike Matthews, according to the reports, made a ton of big plays in the scrimmage. I'm telling you, he's going to be an unguardable receiver this year in the fall. But who's going to play opposite him? Chris Brazel, you would expect to. 29 catches for 333 yards last year, 3 touchdowns. But he's been battling injuries all offseason. He has been accused of not caring about the game. He has been arrested. He was arrested a week ago for driving on a suspended license, dealing with a lot of issues. And as the hands possession guy who wins 50-50 balls, he could struggle to get on the field because of everything he's dealing with. However, who's going to replace him if he can't go? Initially, I had a freshman, Travis Smith Jr., who is the most highly touted one, Ra Jackson, another highly touted one, both 4-star wideouts, and then Joaquin Dotson, the 3-star, but Joaquin Dotson is a 3-star freshman and wasn't even there in spring ball, so I figured he wouldn't be ready to go. The other one would be Trey Weary. I thought it was down to one of those 4. Well, I was wrong about something. It might be Amari Jefferson. Joey Aguilar threw a touchdown pass to Amari Jefferson in the scrimmage on Saturday, according to reports. Amari Jefferson looked full, ready to go. He is 6 feet, and look, he has a little bit of experience playing at the college level, and he's a really smart kid. He's young, but he's not a true freshman, meaning he definitely, likely, has been able to pick up the system a little more easily than a lot of other players on a similar level. Taking that into account, I think Amari Jefferson, guys, might be the one who replaces Chris Brazel, and I would not have said that a week ago. Amari Jefferson could be the complimentary wideout to Matthews. Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down. 3rd down. We talked about the hype and excitement behind Jermon McCoy last week, because it looks like he's back practicing with the team, but he still remains limited, and he was limited on Saturday. So it's very clear he's too hurt to be the main cornerback for Tennessee to start the year. With that in mind, I think Colton Hood's going to win the job. I thought it was going to be Ricky Gibson III and Colton Hood be the complimentary guy, but it looks like Colton Hood is going to win the job. I think Colton Hood is going to be the number 1 cornerback. That's why Tennessee got him out of Colorado to begin with. And then on the other side, I think Ricky Gibson III will still be the number 2 cornerback. That'll be your 2 cornerbacks. But that's not the only secondary issue to deal with. And 4 downs, again, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume Ford dealer.
Right now, get 0% APR, 0 down, and 0 payments for 90 days on select models, plus 2 years complimentary maintenance.
Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
All this is Center Cooper Mays here. 4th down. 4th down. Boo Carter is still limited in practice drills and is not practicing with the first team, according to reports. He's out there in full practice, so he's not limited in drills. I should correct myself, but he's not working with the first team as much. It's looking like he's not going to start at the beginning of the season. What does that mean? It means Ty Redmond is going to be the starting nickel. Yes, I believe Ty Redmond will start at nickel. He's a true freshman. Tennessee ran him a lot, according to reports. They used him a lot during spring ball or during the second scrimmage. Looks like they want him to be their starting nickel. Complementing him, they want Jalen McMurray to be the utility cornerback between Hood, Gibson, and Carter, and Redmond. One of them being out, they want Jalen McMurray to be the star utility guy. And then at the safety spots, you have Jordan Thomas. I believe he'll still win that starting job, and Andre Turrentine. So that's how I think it's going to play out. Ty Redmond having a big deal. Timothy McGee comes up with another super chat. Timothy, I really appreciate you. A lot of super chats today. Really appreciate your support. He says, since Heupel and company won't play freshman quarterbacks, do I think they will start George or Merklinger next year? Timothy, I think that it's a complete open question. I'll say this. If it comes down to those two, it's going to be George McIntyre. Heupel never recruited Merklinger to ever be the future at Tennessee. He recruited Merklinger to be a serviceable backup for Nico Iamaleava until George McIntyre or Faison Brandon was ready to go. And the reason Merklinger accepted that was for the off chance that he could actually win the starting job and prove everybody wrong. But Heupel himself never expected Merklinger to be the starting quarterback. That was a Taven Jackson commitment. If you guys don't know, Tennessee landed Taven Jackson, a 4-star out of Indiana. They went and got Nico the next year. The whole point was to make sure Taven Jackson was a backup if they needed him. And also if he, and at that point, he could have the chance to win the starting job if he proves anybody wrong. He didn't. He transferred. That's how that worked. So of those two, I think it would be George McIntyre. However, I think Faison Brandon is going to be more ready as a true freshman quarterback, Timothy, than you're giving credit for. And the reason is he's already 210 pounds. The problem with Nico and George McIntyre is they were both too skinny, and Brandon looks a lot more ahead of the curve. That's why Heupel's actually going to have a true open competition next year for the first time. So keep an eye on that. We'll see how it all plays out. But as far as this year and on the defensive side, I do think that Boo Carter and Jamar McCoy will work their way back, but that's not going to be the case at the start of the year. The way they opened the year at Syracuse, Colton Hood and Ricky Gibson III are the top two cornerbacks. Ty Redmond is the starting safety. Jalen McMurray is the utility cornerback to go in and spell any of the other players when they're tired or if they get hurt. He's going to see a lot of action with that role. And then Jordan Thomas and Andre Turrentine will be the safeties. That's how I think that's going to play out. We'll see if I'm right. Portions of the program are brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. hdknoxville.com. hdknoxville.com. Also, I forgot to mention that this day in Tennessee sports history is brought to you by Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live your life to the fullest, hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. peakivhydration.com. Link is in the chat. Peak IV Hydration. Please, please, please. Please take a look at that. That is portions of the program brought to you by Peak IV Hydration. Again, peakivhydration.com. And I want to apologize for not bringing them up at the beginning of this date in Tennessee history. When we come back, the ESPN Football Power Index, the FPI is out, and Tennessee has actually jumped from June. We're going to discuss why. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the hook sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Hello, ma'am. I'm here to look at that plumbing problem. Oh boy. Yep. You're gonna need a whole new sink.
If this toilet is no good, you're gonna need a new one ASAP. You are not gonna believe this. You're all out of milk. Have you heard about our service plan?
I need to call Scott's.
Scott's Plumbing, your trusted neighborhood plumber since 1977.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Hit that like and subscribe button. Please ring the bell and turn on your notifications. Building something great here at Off the Hook, and we want you to be a part of it. We will have the stat of the day coming up in a little while, and that will be an interesting one. So watch out for that. Watch out for what we'll be saying with the stat of the day. It's actually more interesting than you could even realize. But first, the ESPN FPI is out. Tennessee has jumped up to number 8 after being number 10 in the summer. Keep in mind, in the summer when they were number 10, we're talking about a team that had already added Joey Aguilar. The whole Nico saga had already happened, and now they're up to 8. Before that, they were number 9 in January, before the saga of Nico had happened. So the FPI has been very, very high on Tennessee the whole time. This comes on the heels of the ESPN FP Plus rankings, SP Plus rankings. I want to apologize on that, which has Tennessee at number 12. Why is that relevant? Because both rankings have Tennessee significantly higher than the actual polls have Tennessee. The polls have Tennessee at number 17 in the coaches poll and number 24 in the AP poll. So why is the FPI doing so well? Now, I want to do a caveat real quick. Among preseason prediction accuracy that relies on formulas and not at random voting, the FPI is the 4th least accurate of all major publications. Pick Six Previews, Athon, Phil Steele, McGilly Sports, Arena Fanatic, and DRatings.com are all better. FPI is ahead of Lindy's, Venus Sports Simulator, and collegefootballpoll.com. So keep that in mind. However, there is no denying that Tennessee has a significantly better ranking in the computers than they do the polls. And it's interesting to know why that is. But that doesn't mean there haven't been some inconsistencies. We're going to play a little hot or cold, brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates, facebook.com/sports treasures TN, facebook.com/sports treasures TN. We're going to talk about the teams that they have moved around since this all began with the FPI back in January, when Tennessee again came in at number 9. They were number 9 in the FPI after the football season ended. Their official 2024 FPI finished at number 9. They fell down to number 10, only number 10 in spring ball after losing Nico Iamaleava. And then they jumped up to number 8 in the preseason FPI for 2025. More importantly, their projected record has gone from 8.7 in the summer to 9 now. They are projected right at 9-3. Given a 43% chance to make the playoff. They are the highest ranked team of the teams with a less than 50% chance to make the playoff. There are 7 teams given a greater than 50% chance to make the playoff. Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Oregon all have a greater than 50% chance. Tennessee is the highest of the team. They are the highest ranked teams of anybody below 50% chance, and they have the best chance of anybody with less than a 50% chance at 43%. Their odds to make the national title game are 7.1%. Their odds to win it are 3.2%. Their odds to win the conference title are 6.1%. So I want to reiterate that. Their odds to win the conference are longer than their odds to make the national title game. Should give you a rundown of just how tough the SEC is this year. At the same time, to be fair, Ohio State's odds to win the most of the SEC teams are like that this year. None of the Big Ten teams are, for the record. Ohio State has a 35% chance to win the Big Ten, 19.5 to make the national title game. Penn State at 30.7, 17.1 national title game. Oregon at 13.4, 8.9 to make the national title game. So let's get rolling. Hot or cold, the teams that have been moving around them, and let's discuss which of these we are hot on, cold on Tennessee being better than. So starting with Texas A&M. Tennessee jumped Texas A&M from 9th to 8th. Texas A&M went from 8th to 9th. I'm sorry, from 10th to 8th, excuse me. So in June of this year, Texas A&M was number 8 in the FPI. Tennessee was number 10. Now, Tennessee is number 8 in the FPI. Texas A&M is number 9. All right, guys, I'm actually cold on that. And when I say cold, again, I don't debate formulas. I don't do that. This isn't an opinion by the FPI. They're just doing their formulas. I'm just saying if I'm cold on the formula being right or not for this team. I don't think the formula is going to be accurate for Texas A&M. I've said for a while, I think Texas A&M is going to end up being better than Tennessee this year, or at least has the case to be better. I think there's a lot of talent. Now, does that mean Texas A&M will make the playoff over Tennessee? No, I don't think so, largely because I think Tennessee has an easier schedule. But I do think Texas A&M will actually be better than Tennessee this year. So I'm cold on that. Keeping it going, hot or cold? Miami. I don't know what happened with the FPI because, again, it's formula-based, not opinion-based, but Miami dropped from 9th in the summer in June to 17th ahead of the start of the season, whereas Tennessee moved from 10th to 8th. They were one spot behind Miami. I am extremely hot on Tennessee being ahead of Miami. I've been screaming for a while now that Miami's massively overrated this year. They didn't have that many impressive wins last year, if any. They got a bad head coach in Mario Cristobal who can't make in-game decisions. And Carson Beck is not a fit for Cristobal's system the way Cam Ward was. I don't get the hype behind Miami. I think it's again, all you could believe is that they are playing in the ACC, which should give them an easy track to get to the college football playoff. But I am extremely hot on Tennessee being ahead of Miami and extremely cold on Miami. We got one more team to discuss. Hot or cold, brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates, facebook.com/sports treasures TN.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
The final team that Tennessee has alternated rankings with, Ole Miss. Now, Tennessee has stayed consistently ahead of Ole Miss in the 2025 FPI. However, Ole Miss finished the 2024 FPI ranked number 5. Tennessee finished it ranked number 9. Tennessee is now number 8 in the FPI. Ole Miss is number 10. Ole Miss moved up to 10th from 13th in the summer when Tennessee was number 10. Now, you may think, well, obviously this isn't a big deal. That's last year's FPI. Ole Miss lost a ton of talent, so they're going to be below Tennessee. Well, you would be wrong because the Ole Miss model is to lose a ton of talent and replace it every year, and they were ahead of Tennessee last year when Tennessee seemed to be a much better team entering the season than they are this year. However, all that being said, I'm still hot on Tennessee being ahead of Ole Miss. I'm hot on Tennessee being ahead of Ole Miss because you had the fear of the unknown with Ole Miss, and guess what? Tennessee made the playoff last year. Ole Miss didn't. A few other names I want to just go down the list that you could debate. Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, Oregon. I got no problem with any of those teams being ahead of Tennessee. That's totally fine. Below Tennessee, I mentioned Texas A&M and Ole Miss. South Carolina below Tennessee. LSU below Tennessee. I think those two have a case to be ahead of Tennessee. Florida and USC below Tennessee. fine with that. They should be. Same with Michigan. Clemson below Tennessee. I'm glad people are doing that. Clemson's down at 16. A bunch of teams are having them. A bunch of voters are having them in the top 5. Really overrating Cade Klubnik. I'm telling you guys, Clemson is very overrated with that. Miami below at number 17. Kansas State number 18. SMU 19th. Oklahoma 20th. FPI and AP poll are similar with Oklahoma. Interesting. Auburn 21. BYU 22. Missouri 23. Arizona State 24. Indiana 20. 5. That rounds out the top 25. And again, it's not like you say whether or not you agree with something or this. FPI is not an opinion. It's just using, your certain metrics to determine how good you're going to be. Tennessee's strength of schedule. One thing that really stands out is their strength of schedule is underrated compared to their projected strength of schedule, is actually very underrated for the year, and I don't think enough teams are talking about it. Florida, it's number 21. Now, look, per FPI, second easiest in the SEC. Missouri's down at number 27. But the SEC is overloading the strength of schedule. Florida, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, A&M, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Texas, and Georgia have the 9 toughest strength of schedule. Wisconsin's number 10, LSU's number 11, Alabama's number 12, South Carolina's number 13, and Auburn is number 14. Syracuse, of all teams, is number 15. Their FPI is number 63. Hence the reason I think there's no more fear of Tennessee being upset by Syracuse. And then the other SEC team ranked ahead of Tennessee in strength of schedule, Ole Miss at number 20. So we're going to see how that all plays out. But at least for now, Tennessee's schedule is underrated, but it is very easy by SEC standards, which is why I think, honestly, they should be given a greater chance to make the playoff. I don't know how the formula for the FPI works, but that's just my take. So hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn on your notifications, tell a friend, building something great here at Off the Hook. Want you to be a part of it. It is time for the stat of the day. And the stat of the day is brought to you by Joe Neuber Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Neuber Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. JoeNeuberCollision.com, JoeNeuberCollision.com. And the stat of the day is this. Get ready. The stat of the day is Joey Aguilar will, now that he's been named the starter, he will open the season, provided he stays healthy, as Tennessee's starting quarterback in his final year of eligibility. His first start with Tennessee. Let me rephrase this stat because it's kind of an interesting one, and I'm not phrasing it right. Joey Aguilar will get his first start with Tennessee to open the season in his final year of eligibility. Let me say that again. His first start with Tennessee will be to open his final year of eligibility. Who is the last quarterback whose first start with Tennessee was to begin his final year of eligibility? Can anybody know? Just think of all the quarterbacks to start the season for Tennessee and ask which one was in his final year of eligibility and ask if he had not started a game for Tennessee before that start. Ready for the answer? Anybody know the answer? The answer is Jerry Colquitt. And one of the saddest stories of all time, Jerry Colquitt started the year for Tennessee in 1994, was supposed to start the whole year while Peyton Manning was supposed to redshirt, and Peyton and Brandon Stewart were supposed to redshirt. Todd Helton was supposed to just kind of be the veteran backup in case something happened. And on the 7th play of the UCLA game in the opener, Jerry Colquitt suffered a season-ending injury. A month later, Peyton Manning was a starter. Never looked back. But Jerry Colquitt, that was his first start, was the opening game of the 94 season. It was his first start with Tennessee. He had been Heath Schuler's backup in 92 and 93, lost the job to him when it was an open competition. In 91 was Andy Kelly's backup with Heath Schuler and had actually redshirted in 1990. Drew Collins, you bring up Keller Chris, but the thing is, Jerry Garantano started that year against West Virginia. And so that's why it couldn't be Keller Chris. So, stat of the day brought to you again by Joe Newbert Collision Center for nearly 50 years in East Tennessee. Joe Newbert Collision Center has been the best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. Joe Newbert Collision.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Hit that like and subscribe button again. Ring the bell. Turn on your notifications. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. New and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford Lincoln volume dealer. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Big Ten's floated college football playoff proposal, which I hate. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the hook sports.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume Ford dealer.
Right now, get 0% APR, 0 down, and 0 payments for 90 days on select models, plus 2 years complimentary maintenance.
Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Hit that like and subscribe button. Want to remind you guys that I will be on my other YouTube channel where I'm back to talking pro sports after taking a month off. Sports Nightcap, that is in the description down below, and link is in the chat. Please hit the like and subscribe button to that channel. I am live every Sunday, Monday, and Thursday nights after the biggest game of that day. So please hit the like. Or after the latest game of that day, put it that way, whatever sports event that is, whatever big sports event, we love to talk pro sports those nights. So hit the like and subscribe to that channel. It is time to close out the show with What the H. And this is a big What the H. According to sources, the Big Ten has considered an idea of expanding the college football playoff to 24 or 28 teams, according to Pete Thamel. This broke yesterday. In this model, the Big Ten and SEC would each get 7 auto bids. The ACC and Big 12 would each get 5. And then there would be 2 for the non-Power 4 conferences and 2 at large. It would put 20 playoff games on campus, which would accentuate the success of that from the last year's CFP. The CFP committee would seed the field and pick the at-large teams. Tony Petitti reportedly ran it by the conference last Wednesday. Guys, a 28-team college football playoff. Let me tell you where I think this is coming from. The Big Ten right now is in a big fight with the SEC. The expansion that is coming after this year is up from the 12-team expansion, they will have to renegotiate. The Big Ten and the SEC hold all the cards next year. They can't agree to a format. The Big Ten wants auto bids per conference. 4 teams for the Big Ten, 4 teams for the SEC, 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12. That would get them to 12. And then 1 group of 5, which would get you to 13. And then you either have 1 to or 3 at large bids, 14, 15, and 16. The SEC just wants a straight seeding model where the top 5 conference champions get in. The top 5 conference champions, and then either the next 7, as is this year, or the next 9, or the next 12. The SEC would prefer the next 9 or the next 12, or the next 9 or the next 11, to get to a 14 or 16 team playoff. The reason the Big Ten opposes that specific model is not because the Big Ten would have fewer teams. It's because the SEC would have more teams. Just take last year for an example. Just take last year's college football playoff rankings. There were 3 SEC teams and 4 Big Ten teams that got in. Would have been that way with the model no matter what, which is why the SEC still wants to go to 14 or 16. Had the college football playoff gone to 14 teams instead of 16 teams, you would have had Alabama get in. So there would have been the same number of SEC teams and Big Ten teams. But here's the problem. If they had gone to 16 teams. By the way, with 14, let me point this out. 14 teams, you would have had the same number, SEC and Big Ten. You would have had you done the model that the Big Ten floated, you also would have had the exact same number, the exact same teams would have gotten in. However, had they gone to 16 teams, with the 5 plus 11 model that the SEC wanted, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Alabama would have gotten in. That would have been 6 SEC teams to 4 Big Ten teams. Whereas if the Big Ten model had happened, and this is a big deal, stay with me here, had the Big Ten model happened, 4, 8, 10, 12, 13, and then just 3 at-large teams, you would have had, in place of those 3 SEC teams, you would have had to put BYU in, which means there only would have been 5 SEC teams. You see the point I'm saying? The Big Ten is trying to curb the influence of the SEC in the college football playoff if there's a 5 plus 11, 16 team model. However, they can not necessarily add more Big Ten teams because another Big Ten team would not have been added. They don't like that. But the SEC does for obvious reasons. The Big Ten has decided that they could get on board with the 5 plus 11 model if the SEC agrees to go to 9 conference games. SEC teams don't want to go to 9 conference games. 1, the schedule in the SEC is much more brutal than the Big Ten. You don't get an Indiana schedule in the SEC. 2, and more importantly, the SEC has a bad deal with ESPN right now, so the payouts from the bowl games to 6 wins are much more important. You need that extra bad non-conference game to get there. On top of that, and more than anything, there's lost revenue from 9 conference games because it goes from 128 total games played by the SEC to 120. So the SEC teams don't want it. This is the Big Ten's floated idea to fix it. This is what they're doing. They're saying, what if we go all the way to 24 or 28 teams? Then we'd all be good because we'd all get more than we thought in there. It's ridiculous. It is what the H. It is brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. What the H?
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Guys, don't sleep on this 24 to 2018 model being a real possibility. Okay, in the 2018 model, the SEC and Big Ten would each get 7 auto bids. You want to just last year, who would those have been? Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Missouri. The Big Ten's auto bids would have been Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana, Illinois, Guys, those are the only teams that are receiving votes in the Big Ten that were in the college football playoff top 25 last year. That was it. That was it. Where else do they go? Seriously, where else do they go? I guess you could make, and nobody else in the AP poll was even receiving votes last year after those teams. Where do you go? Iowa? You would probably have Iowa in there, which would be absolutely ridiculous. And the 7th team would have been, if I'm not mistaken, so let's just go down the list. Who would the 7th team have been? 7th team would have been Michigan at 8-5, or maybe Minnesota at 8-5. 7-5, 7-5, excuse me. USC could have had a case to get in. You realize how ridiculous this looks? That's absolutely insane. 7-7. And then the other part that their floater proposal had was 5 ACC teams. What? 5 ACC teams, by the way, plus 1 to 3 at-large teams. All those at-large teams, although it would have been the SEC, so it would have even further benefited the SEC. I don't know if you know that, because then the 5, you would have those 5. Let's take the 5 ACC teams real quick. The 5 ACC teams would have been SMU, Miami, Clemson, Syracuse, and I think Louisville would have been the other one. Okay, fair. And then the 5 Big 12 teams would have been Arizona State, BYU, Iowa State, Colorado, and the 5th Big 12 team would have been, you guys correct me on this if I'm wrong, but the 5th Big 12 team would have been Baylor or TCU, one of the two. That's 5-5, 7-7. You're at 24. Then you have the top group of 5 team, which would have been in that time frame last year. If I'm pulling up the playoff rankings again now, would have been Boise State, just like it was last year for the Mountain West. Then you have 3 at large. Notre Dame gets one of the at large bids. Okay, fair enough. Can live with that. UNLV and then Memphis. So they would have still iced out the SEC. Guys, this is insane. This is insane. But I'm going to tell you this up right. This is the fault of everybody who fought for expansion. As long as a playoff exists, people will fight to expand it for money. The SEC might get on board with this, guys. Don't sleep on the SEC's willingness to get on board with this. They really might. Okay? And if they do, I'm putting all the blame for it on everybody who fought for the expansion beyond the 14 playoff. I'm actually putting all the blame for it on everybody who fought for the expansion beyond the BCS. I'm putting all the blame on it on everybody who fought for the BCS. If I had my way in college football, conferences would go back to 10 teams. Every conference would have 10 teams. You play a round robin, 9-game schedule. And no conference championship weekend. Round robin, 9-game schedule, and no, maybe, you know, I take that back. I would do conference champions for fun. Round robin, 9-game conference schedule, 3 non-conference opponents. You then play a conference championship game with the top 2 teams in the conference. Boom. Then you have the bowl games and the old school bowl tie-ins the way they were in the 90s, where the Big Ten and Pac-10 play in the Rose Bowl. You had the SEC in the Sugar Bowl, the ACC in the Orange Bowl. Bring back the old Big East. You guys get what I'm talking about. Once you're done with those bowl games, then you rank the top 2 teams and you put them together against each other in the national title game. Does anybody really believe college football is better today than it was in 1990? It's just not. And I don't care what anybody says. It's really not. This is going to further destroy it. And I put the blame on every single person. I mean, every single person who supported any sort of expansion dating back to 1990. The playoff was stupid. It was wrong. And that's the reason it's where we are right now. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. New and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Hit that like and subscribe button. Ring the bell. Turn on your notifications. Tell a friend. It is officially week 0 in college football. And we are excited. We can't be more excited. Again, hit the like and subscribe button. getting ready for the season. Also, don't forget to tune into my other show tonight, Sports Nightcap, on my YouTube channel there. Hit the like and subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button to that channel. Again, link is in the chat and it's in the description down below. I am back every Sunday, Monday, and Thursday to talk pro sports with you. I go live after the biggest sporting event after the last sporting event, the last big sporting event of the day, each of those days, to talk some pro sports. Can't wait to see you guys again tonight. You guys have a great rest of your day with Caleb Calhoun. This has been a presentation